most people, 70 to 80% of their diet comes from ultra-processed foods. That food is fast, easy, and convenient. So what if I find fast, easy, and convenient science-based techniques that help you take back your power?
I have a confession to make. Earlier this week, I blew my diet. I have been doing so well crowding out all these foods that are not serving me lately. Sugars, dairy, gluten, you name it, you know the deal, right? And look, I'm an integrative nutrition, holistic health coach. I should know these things. I know what gives, but I'm also human too. You know what I'm talking about. Stress, anxiety, fatigue, whatever it is that caused me to pick up that bag of licorice and put it in my shopping cart with all the good foods that were in there. Like, you know what your body craves, but for some reason it happened. So, after I had a few encounters with said licorice that will remain nameless, I have to say that I could do one of two things. I could kick myself to no end, right? Blame and shame. Or I can take a different approach and just be kind to myself because life happens. And while all this is happening, my friends, I am preparing for this very conversation with Connie Bennett, who not only wrote a number of books on sugar shock, but has a new book out that is like a bonk in the head, right? Like I should have had a V8. Remember that commercial? And it's called I Blew My Diet. Now what? And if you've ever asked yourself that question, you're in for a real healthy treat on Holistically Speaking with Connie. I am so excited to have you here. And let me tell you, it's so funny that that story actually happened, Connie, because I'm sitting there eating the licorice while I'm looking over your content thinking, you got to be kidding. You got to be kidding me. Is this really happening? So here you are writing your third book or about to launch your third book. And I'm sitting here eating my licorice. And I know that you have had these moments yourself, or this book wouldn't have happened, nor would the two that came before it.
Well, Hilary, thank you so much for having me. I actually have a licorice story myself many moons ago. And this is before I kicked sugar and processed carbs. I was a major sugar addict, and a doctor had told me that I needed to kick sugar and processed carbs, and that if I did, all my 44 ailments, mood swings, headaches, difficulty concentrating, anxiety, just on and on and on, they would all go away. Now, I am a journalist, a very skeptical journalist. I was like, what? They're all going to go away. But anyhow, so he gave me that advice. And I was reading my books about quitting sugar while eating red licorice.
You're my people.
So that was a number of years ago, but I could totally relate to the whole red licorice.
I knew you could because I'm sitting here like almost, I could not wait to tell you that story because look, we're human and we tend to need to soothe ourselves, but there are better ways to soothe ourselves. And both of us being health coaches, we almost want to kick ourselves even more because we're like, we should know better.
Yeah.
But when we do that, that's when we tend to even go further down the rabbit hole because we start, getting really hard on ourselves.
But here's the thing. Because, and you and I are both journalists, because we're journalists, we can fall down that rabbit hole and then we can put our journalistic curiosity to good use, which is basically what happened with me. So this was more than a decade ago, and I'd been eating cleanly for a decade, organic and vegetables and low sugar fruits and just eating really well. And my mood was stable and life was good. And my mother became terminally ill. I moved to be with her, and I spent a pretty grueling year with her during her last year of her life. And for those of your listeners who've had loved ones who've had cancer, the cancer can cause any number of changes even in the person, not just their health, but in my mom's case, it was her personality. let's just say the polite, dynamic woman was not always there. And so right after she died, it was like, boom, I began to eat carbs, processed carbs, like they were going out of style. And basically, I was hanging out in movie theaters. I needed to escape. And I would hang out in movie theaters and just shove these crunchy, greasy, salty movie popcorn into my mouth. And literally within months, I packed on 21 pounds. I had insulin resistance, and I felt like a big fraud because I just spent the better part of a decade telling people, hey, and helping people to get off this stuff.
You talk about that in your book too. Like you really start off the book that way, which was like
Yes.
very much pulling us into Connie's story. And you mentioned that your mom has different phases, like different types of mom.
Yeah,
And-
loving mom, cancer mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, that mothering of self, the self-soothing can sometimes mean what's going to make me feel good in the moment, which we go to the food or the salty popcorn or the licorice or whatever it might be. What for those tuning in, I really want you to talk about what your aha moment was. Rather than hearing it from me, because I did love this book. I mean, you write in a very humorous way, which I love because I write the same way. And it's almost like we're having a conversation with Connie.
Well, that was my intention.
Yeah.
And I've written 2 previous books, Sugar Shock and Beyond Sugar Shock. But this book, oh my goodness, I like let my hair down. I let the world see that, I really fell off the wagon, the clean eating wagon. What was it like? Initially, it was absolutely scary. Like, my credibility was at stake. Like, I coached people. I was a recognized sugar and carb expert. So it took me a long time to get the guts up to do it. I even started another book before this one. No, I started 4 other books. And then one day I'm like, no, I need to come clean with people and admit that I had fallen off the clean eating wagon, that I blew my diet. And once I did that, once I made the decision, then I was like, oh, this is exciting because I'm going to help people who are just like me, who in that moment of whatever it is they're going through and they ate badly. And so now that's my mission. It's like, let me help people who have eaten badly. So now I poke fun of myself.
That's a big part of it, is humor is part of the healing, right? It is such a part of the healing. And when we can step back outside of ourselves for a moment and be like, oh my goodness, did I seriously say that or do that or feel that? And being okay feeling your feels, but then kind of laughing at yourself is part of the lesson.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what I sought to do with my new book, I Blew My Diet Now What, is that I did seek to reveal lots of fast, easy science-based tactics and lots of research and, interesting takes that I had, but I also wanted to give it some levity.
Yeah. So you call it I Blew My Diet Now What? But it also is, the subtitle to it is the easy, proven 21-day plan to drop pounds and bounce back boldly.
Yes.
And you hear that and you're like, everyone wants that quick fix or they want help. And like, how can I do that? I'm such a carb or sugar addict. What is the 21 days that you share? We don't have to go through all the 21 days. We want people to get the book. But what is it that makes this one different, where they can really do this with ease? Because a lot of people start something and they just give up after a couple days.
When I had fallen flat on my face and eaten so badly, I kept searching for books to help me. And I couldn't find one. I mean, there were elements of one book and elements of another, and there were some really good books by, some top thought leaders and doctors, but I couldn't find the book that I was looking for. And so that's why literally in the first part of my book, it's like about a third of the book maybe, I outlined 21 reasons that people may have eaten badly. Because, hey, you're a journalist, my intention is to help people to understand why. Why did they pig out? And then once they discover why, then they can move on to find out, how do I take back my power?
So how did Connie take back her power?
In steps. And that's basically because I written 2 books about sugar, and I tested all my old processes. And I was like, nah, I need something better. And so basically I was like on the search for tactics that could work quickly. So here's the situation. If you're an American or anywhere in any civilized country, no matter where you go, you are going to be besieged by temptation. So the number one reason that we eat badly is that we are accosted by a flurry of tempting junk foods, and they're ultra processed. And that's why I call them Carbage, stands for carb garbage. I mean, they're like 230,000 ultra processed foods. And I was pretty astounded in learning the research, which is that most people consume 80%, well, 70 to 80% of their diet comes from ultra processed foods. And it's like, okay, how can we confront that? And so that's when I hit on the idea, well, that food is fast, easy, and convenient. So what if I find fast, easy, and convenient science-based techniques that help you take back your power?
Yeah.
So that's what I've sought to do now.
I love that. And by the way, like when I was first reading the book, and like within the first couple pages, you talk about Carbage, and I'm like, I'm going to love this book because she loves wordplay. And I'm a big fan of wordplay. But I mean, that's where it comes to making light of certain things. Like sometimes it's hard to just, all right, I bought the book. All right, I'm reading it. All right, now I got to implement something. So you're talking about these fast and easy techniques. And listen, I'm a huge proponent of that, being somebody that does the neuroscience work I do with havening. It's a very fast and easy technique. What can you give us an example of what some of those techniques might be for folks?
Sure. Okay, so I created a technique that I call the FAST technique.
Mm-hmm.
And the F stands actually for fractals. And most people may not know what that means. Basically, those are the fingerprints of nature. They're found in leaves, trees, branches, ocean waves, seashells. But research shows that when you watch or look at those fractals, the effects can be almost instantaneous. That's what one researcher told me. And other research showed that watching fractals can reduce your stress by 60%. So the F is the first part of my FAST technique. And the A is to appreciate. I mean, a lot of people talk about, you really should do a gratitude list, but, even if you don't do a gratitude list, you could just in your head count off like 3 things that you really, really appreciate. So, like today, I really appreciate having this interview. And then the S in FAST is to shower yourself with self-compassion. And there's been considerable research about the power of self-compassion, that it ramps up motivation and it boosts happiness, reduces anxiety, depression, and stress. And what I found most interesting in terms of shedding weight is that when you're self-compassion, it boosts your body image and reduces your body shame. And that I thought was really, really fascinating. And then the T stands for take an optimistic attitude toward weight loss or toward whatever goal you're going for. And that was, again, I was researching studies off the wazoo. Research shows that patients were more successful when they took an upbeat, good news approach. So I recommend people talk to themselves encouragingly. So that's one technique that I have.
Yeah. Love it, though. I love it. Acronyms are easy.
The FAST stands for, the F is for fractals, the A is for appreciate, the S is to shower yourself with compassion, and the T is to take an optimistic attitude. You want to talk to yourself in really, really kind ways. So you started this interview with the fact that, you had your little licorice episode.
Yes, that's what we're going to call it, is a licorice episode.
and
Isolated.
And so you want just talk to yourself kindly. Oh, it's okay, Hilary. You had a rough day, or XYZ was bothering you, and of course you turned to red licorice. And hey, that's fine. That's okay. You can move on now.
Do I have to confess that it wasn't red and it was actually the black licorice? Hey, at least I'm taking red dye out of my life. But
actually,
it was natural too.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I guess I just, red licorice was my thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that they should be able to monitor what they eat. And that's true. But what I would encourage your listeners to think about is the quality of the foods that you put in your mouth is going to affect the way that you feel. So if you are eating lots of ultra-processed foods, you're not going to feel as good as you would if you ate quality foods, organic, gluten-free, or dairy-free, or whatever. It doesn't have to be that, but that's not going to come in a box or a jar or a can. Though there are lots of canned and jarred foods and box foods that are healthy.
And we learn at Integrative Nutrition, which I know you're also a health coach as well. We learned a number of years ago that if it's made by people in white coats, you're going to see people in white coats. I always remember that one. And that, look, we live in a fast-paced world, so it's quick and easy. What can we eat? How do we get this done in like record time? And it might be hard to always eat things that are from the earth naturally in our own garden, right? But we can do our best to limit the amount of ingredients that are in that box if we have to go, or in that can. And it really is up to us to be our own healthcare advocate as well. But I love that you mentioned all this stuff. And it is about like being easy on ourselves. I really love the fast approach. That's something I think that's going to really sit with people. We have a hard time being appreciative of ourselves. It is a very difficult thing to give ourselves gratitude and appreciation and compliments, especially women.
Even though my book is considered, quote unquote, a diet book, I really consider it more of a book to help you to fall in love with and make peace with your body, and to empower you to become better. But it had to have diet in the title.
And look, I think that's a word we use a lot. If it's not a lifestyle change, it's a diet. It's changing a habit, right? So if it's called a diet, that's fine, because we're constantly trying to feel better, look better, and it does resonate. Like if I saw that book, and when that book is in the stores, which is happening now, or online,
5 days.
Right, when that book happens at the time of this recording, right? It's like you see the book, you see diet, and it does pull you in. Like, oh, will this be the thing that helps me? I want to move on to like the bounce back boldly, because that's actually part of your subtitle, which is that you have these 21 proven ways in 21 days to bounce back boldly. What do you mean by bounce back boldly?
If I actually, hit the dictionaries, because there's a lot of talk about that you bounce back. But when you bounce back, you go right back to where you were. And I'm like, huh. And that's not really the message that I'm trying to convey. I want to convey that people are going to be better and happier and healthier. So that's when I added boldly. So bounce back boldly. We don't want to encourage people to do just like vanilla flavored bouncing back. You want to outpace the old you. You want to bounce back with passion and pizzazz and purpose. And so basically, to capture this feeling of becoming better and better, that's when I added the word bounce boldly.
Love that. I hear the word bold, and it resonates with me. It's powerful. It's a powerful word. So, and it's one that I'm sure a lot of people will gravitate to, because when we think about the diet after diet after diet, when we don't succeed at something, especially dieting, a lot of times the weight comes back and even more. You gain back more than you lost the first time. So to do something boldly, it could really give people possibilities, I think.
One of the things that I mentioned earlier, that this is not so much a diet book as like a book to help you to become more empowered and to eat better. And you asked me about the difference between, the other books. I think that is one of the main differences, is that I tried to make this more than a diet book, better than a diet book.
So I'm going to bring this up because I had my licorice episode, and I think this is going to really resonate with a lot of people. How do you stand strong against the temptation of the junk food jungle? Connie, take it away.
Well, the first step is to be aware of it, not to get angry, but you need to be aware of the fact that the minute you step outside the door of your home, you're going to be smack dab in the middle of the junk food jungle.
What would Connie do? WWCD. What would Connie do in that moment if you were having
Connie
a moment?
3.0.
Connie 3.0, right, because it's your third book.
I would definitely do the hug, hum, rock, relief process before I left my home. I would anticipate that I knew I was going to be tempted. That is like a done deal. And once you expect that and accept that, then you can stand strong. The other thing I would do would be to write down, or if I don't have time to write down, just ask myself really, really quickly, what the heck is going on with me? Like, why all of a sudden, this minute, am I so tempted? And it could be any number of things. I mean, I talk about 21 reasons, but I mean, it could be the death of a loved one that makes you, you're more vulnerable than usual. It could be your divorce. It could be your blood sugar is all wonky. It could be, just stress. You're at a stressful situation at work. So once you know why, then you have the power to change. Let's see, another thing you could do would be to do what I call it the cortisol calming quickie. So I don't, cortisol is the hormone that's released. It ramps up when you have stress. So you want to wind that down, just calm yourself down. And you literally can just breathe in really quickly or slowly and then breathe out slowly. And I actually created that one also when my mom was dying, because my stress was off the charts. And literally I just said, okay. And I breathed in and I was like, and I thought to myself at the same time, peace of mind is mine now. And then I breathed out, peace of mind is mine now. And you can literally, maybe you want to go a little more slowly than I did, but you want to breathe into your diaphragm. There's all kinds of research that shows that when you breathe into your diaphragm, it's quite healthy.
Yeah, love that.
So that is a very, very fast one. You can literally do it like seated in your car when in front of your favorite fast food joint. Let's hope you haven't gotten there, but if you have, you can do that. So essentially all the tactics that I share, you mentioned I call them feasts. And yes, I love all these all
these acronyms and wordplay, like you got me.
Feast took me quite a while to create that acronym. But so all of the feasts that I worked on developing, and they're all based on research. I didn't just make this stuff up, but they're all intended that you can do them very, very quickly.
Yeah. And just to remind folks, FEAST is an acronym for Fast, Easy, Awesome, Simple, Tested Strategies. Yes. Knew it off the top of my head. I just
Not platters of food.
No, but it's a feast of good things. Like it could be a feast.
They're platters of
greatness.
Tips.
So just a reminder,
ways
folks,
to take back your power.
If you're enjoying this conversation with Connie Bennett and you want more, make sure that you are clicking that like button or downloading and subscribing to this podcast on Holistically Speaking. If you know somebody that could really benefit from I blew my diet, now what? And just really get something from this conversation, consider passing it along and letting them know that this episode exists. I appreciate it. I know Connie appreciates it. And I want to touch on one approach that you actually mentioned, because you know I was going to bring this up. You had me at hug. You know that's a big part of what I do. And you also have something very similar, which is your hug, hum, rock relief process, which is a self-soothing approach similar to what havening is. And look, I mean, self-soothing has been around way longer than you and I have been on the planet. But how did this come into your space? Because it's similar in that you're giving yourself a hug, which science proves that is helpful, releasing the oxytocin, letting that amygdala know that it's okay and it's safe. And then obviously you're activating the vagus nerve from doing the humming, right? And rocking, which is something we've been doing since we were born. So how did Connie come to find, oh, this really works for me?
Okay, this is my popcorn story. So my mom had passed away a few months previously, and I was puking on movie popcorn like it was going out of style. And within months, I'd gained 21 pounds and felt like a fraud and just physically felt awful. And so one day I'm like, okay, I really do need the escape. So I'm going to go to the movie. But I'm not going to get out of my car, which incidentally was a gift from my mother when she was dying, so that was very nice. So I'm not going to get out of my car until I have developed the fortitude to pass on that movie popcorn in the theater. So I sat in my car, and I like CDs. I know I'm old school. And I turned on a CD, and it was a very soothing CD. And just... it was like instinctively, I started wrapping my arms around myself. And so I was like hugging myself. And then I started rocking. And then I was humming along. And then I was, kind of fondled myself. And I was like, oh, it's okay, Connie, for everything you've been through. And so I did that through one song, maybe 3 minutes. And I was like, I think I'll do it one more time, just to be safe. And so I repeated the whole process. So after roughly, 4 or 5 months of see popcorn, eat popcorn, hate myself for eating the popcorn, this was the first time that I went into a movie theater, saw the popcorn, snubbed the popcorn, and did not eat it. And that's how the hug, hum, rock relief process was born. But since I'm a journalist, I then dove into the research. I was like, why did this work so well? Like, this was amazing. And basically, it was by combining those various techniques, all of which have had science to back them all up. So hugging in of itself has its own benefits. Oxytocin. And then humming does something else, and self-soothing touch. And you can hug, and you don't have to hug someone else if nobody's around. Let's say your kids are off to school and your honey's at work. Well, just hug yourself. And so that's how the hug, hum, rock relief process was born. But then I didn't feel like I wasn't ready to talk about it till I did all the research first.
Right. And when I read
the research was fascinating.
It is fascinating. And I feel like every day I'm still learning about how the self-soothing and benefits of touch are so helpful for us to be able to nurture and self-regulate ourselves. We can't always depend on other people to be able to do that for us, and we need to be able to nurture and mother ourselves. So doing that together, releasing that oxytocin and giving yourself that soothing touch is just such a beautiful way to say, well, it kind of goes back to the the fast, right? It's the appreciation of self. It's this technique. It's being kind to yourself. And it's similar to what we do in the havening technique as well. But anything that helps us heal from the inside out is beneficial. And yeah, being able to change that habit in the process, because being able to walk by that popcorn because you're releasing those really awesome chemicals, right? Those hormones already from soothing yourself, you were letting your amygdala know that it doesn't necessarily need that. It's going to go where you take it, because, the amygdala doesn't know time or space anyway. So
Yeah.
you gave it the popcorn in a different way. You fed the soul. Is what you did.
Quality. I don't know what we call it.
Yeah.
Another word for popcorn. But I just want to tell your listeners that you don't need to have somebody around. You don't need to have music around. You can do this so nobody knows you're doing it. Like if you're somewhere in public and you're going through a rough time, you can just put your arms under, under your shoulders and just hug yourself. Nobody will know you're doing it. So these are things you can do and nobody knows. So they're really easy self-care tools, self-soothing tools. And other people don't have to know that you're doing it.
No, it's your journey. Everybody's on their own journey. I think that's a beautiful thing to share. I appreciate you mentioning that. The other thing I want to talk about is that you've really had some beautiful collaborations in this book. You mentioned the illustrator, but you also have two holistic chefs, Lizette and Jeff Marks, and they are offering like these nutritious, delicious blood sugar balance recipes. So is this kind of a collaboration that's within the book? What is their involvement in the book?
I was recommended to Lizette and Jeff, and I had really, really, really stringent criteria. And they came through. Mm-hmm. I mean, I said, no sugar, no gluten, no dairy, no artificial sweeteners, lower in carbs, maybe not necessarily keto, but lower in carbs, got to help you to lose weight. And that's what they came up with. And they tested everything out. Oh, and it has to taste good.
That's a plus.
It was imperative. It has to taste good.
Right.
And actually, they helped me develop a week's worth of recipes. Mm-hmm. It's not like 3 meals a day, but just like 7 recipes. Mm-hmm. And so I have a free PDF that is part of the package that I'm going to be sending out to people.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that's a great start. I mean, when I removed all of what you just mentioned out of my diet, or crowd out, we say crowd out. When I crowded out, the gluten, the dairy, the sugar, even the coffee, how that even happened for 21 days to a month, I felt so much better, because you're taking out so much of this inflammatory response from your body. And when you take the sugar out, you don't crave the sugar. You're removing that. So once you give yourself a chance, and this is kind of like, this book is kind of a guide by your side in a way, like having Connie in your pocket without having Connie in your pocket in a way, right? So having health coach Connie with you, sharing these amazing tactics, techniques, humorous stories, and the way that you put everything into this book, I think makes it such an easy book to swallow, if that even makes sense. What I have to ask you though, one thing though, what is still your guilty pleasure? You must have something that's a guilty pleasure. You've something that's Carbage. Or even it could be healthy. Like once you take these things out, like maybe your favorite thing is, apples with some peanut butter, almond butter on it.
Lately, what I've been doing is creating a big monster salad with red cabbage and red onions. And so I actually had it earlier today. I had some, I guess it was salmon from this can, like healthy salmon. And sunflower seeds. And so as far as my I don't know if I call it guilty pleasure, but I've really become fascinated by making my own salad dressings.
Love that.
And so I've been experimenting, and it all began because I went to this health food store. I live in San Diego, and they have that like the most amazing red cabbage salad. And I was like, and I like bought it, and I was like studied all the ingredients, and I bought every single ingredient. And so literally for weeks now, I've just been experimenting with this thing. So I actually made that dressing earlier today. So that's I don't think that's really a guilty pleasure.
It can be. It doesn't have to be sweet.
But it's really pleasurable
Yeah.
to create. And I bought a smaller jar to blend in
Yeah.
for my blender.
There's so much online too. Like there's so many great recipes online with people that are sharing healthy recipes. And I think it opens us up to really building our recipe book, our digital recipe book, and trying new things. And guilty pleasure doesn't necessarily have to be sweet. It could just be this is what I enjoy and this is what brings me joy.
You know what I in thinking about this, I think I'm gonna politely take issue with the phrase guilty pleasure.
I was thinking that. Like, what would be better?
I think that I would rather call it a feel-good pleasure or
sweet reward. Well, then it's not sweet, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but sweetness is not just what you eat. Sweetness is like things you have in your life.
Yeah.
But I think you raise a good point, which is it's very important for people to take pleasure. And that's part of like learning to eat better, is that you take pleasure in other things. You don't need to eat, a bag of brownies or a bag of cookies, but that doesn't bring you pleasure in the same way. I actually have a ping pong table now, and I set it up so that the ping pong table is in half. So I can basically play against myself. Actually, I'm playing against the table. And of course, the table always wins. But it's like, it's just a hoot.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
Yeah. And again, why does it have to be food? It could just be something that brings you joy. And taking out a lot of the sugar from your diet and refined foods, is there something that is a sweet enjoyment? We'll put it that way. Like, what is it that do you even crave anything sweet?
I crave organic Fuji apples.
Those are my favorite. Those are so delicious.
And I ran out of them today. So I got to go to the store and buy some. And then I eat them for a snack with like maybe almond butter.
Almond butter. That's one of my favorite snacks. And it's so delicious.
I totally crave that.
Yeah, I hear that. I would be enjoying that right next to you. That's much better than a big old thing of popcorn.
Yeah. So I just want to make the point to your listeners that you can find comfort in healthier things. And that is the message that I'm seeking to get out now. And the other message, I have a lot of messages I'm seeking to get out now, but is that it's not about the weight. Yes, my book will help you to shed weight if that's your goal. Absolutely. But you want to eat better, not just to shed weight. You want to eat better to feel better. And when you eat better, not only do you feel better, but you are better.
When that happens, and I speak from experience, and I am sure a number of people tuning into this do as well, when you start crowding out some of those foods that are not supporting your health and wellness, and you start making better choices and getting creative in the kitchen and trying new things, and you feel better, you actually crave more of the better, right? I mean, and
that's true.
It's such a delightful thing when you realize I am really doing something beautiful for the only temple I have, the only vehicle I have, right? But just giving it a try. So I'm going to encourage people to pick up this book. It is called, I blew my diet. Now what? I like to say it like that. The easy, proven 21-day plan to drop pounds and bounce back boldly by author
No, I would
Connie
go,
Bennett.
bounce back
Bounce
boldly.
back boldly, right? And this book is available. It can be that companion guide. It can be something you might find one or two techniques in it you like, and you stick with those. That Connie's supplying a wonderful PDF to give you options on different recipes, and you can pepper in, no pun intended, you can pepper in your own things that you enjoy and make this work. And then when you see the benefits and you see how it's working for you, you're going to want to do more of it, right? And listen, if you have a piece of licorice every once in a while, don't kill yourself about it. This was great. Okay, so before you go, I have a little game that I play with my folks that are my guests on the show. I call it the brain candy game. I'll throw out a word that you said. You come back with the first word that comes to mind, just one word. Let's see how Connie's brain is doing today.
I don't know, one word?
Just one word.
I'm a writer.
I
I'll probably
know.
come up with 2 or 3 words.
If that happens, I won't hold it against you.
Okay.
Just
All
as
right.
long as it's
Okay.
not a soliloquy or something. Okay. All right, here we go. One word if you can.
Okay.
Sugar.
Dangerous.
Fast. Even though it's an acronym, you can come back with whatever you want.
Bad or good.
Okay. Clean.
Wonderful.
Pleasure.
Awesome.
Diet.
Healthy.
Guilty.
Not a good word.
It's okay. Boldly.
Oh, awesome.
Awesome. Oh, let's stop over there. That's a good one to close it on. Awesome. Boldly, that's with an exclamation point at the end. I love that. Amazing. All right, so I want to give you a moment to just share some closing thoughts with those tuning into Holistically Speaking. What would you share that you would like them to know, or just the takeaway here?
I would like to encourage your listeners to know that if they've been having challenging time around food, they can get beyond that. That you can move from this turbulent, toxic relationship with food to one of peace and ease.
Yeah, it's possible. Nice.
I mean, a lot of people have this just like really, really twisted, dangerous, like scary relationship with food. And I'm telling you, it could be nice. And then the other point I really want to mention, which we talked about earlier, is that, just remember that what you eat helps you become better or, sad, mad, angry. But what you eat could make you become better and happier and healthier.
Yeah. And it's possible. It's like just letting people know it's possible.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. Loved having you.
Thank you. It was really fun, Hilary.
I blew my diet. Now what? I'll tell you what. You're going to go to the podcast notes of this episode of Holistically Speaking with Connie Bennett. You're going to click the link to grab that book, I Blew My Diet. Now what? And you're going to get the support that you need. Plus, you have many ways that you can get in touch with Connie, and it's like having a health coach in your pocket. It's as simple as that. And if you need additional support, I got your back. All you have to do is click the links to get in touch with me, learn more about havening, or if you're interested in learning about getting trained in havening, or even attending one of those amazing monthly free havening happy hours. I got you covered. All right. Holistically Speaking is edited by Two Market Media with music by Lippo Redding, and of course supported by you. And remember, things happen. Get back on the horse. If you blew your diet, it's okay. There's always a way, and there's always support there, willing to help you and be kind to your mind. And remember, I love you, I believe in you, and I'm sending hugs your way. Be well.
I know the girl with mountains